Sziasztok! Itt vagyunk az Ecopunk Fesztiválon, és mellettem áll Bea Johnson, aki számomra is nagy inspiráció volt abban, hogy a SimpliCity Fesztivál teljesen hulladékmentesre szervezzük, és egy kicsit beszélgetni fogok vele a minimalizmusról, meg a hulladékmentes életmódról, hogy benneteket is inspiráljon az az energia, amit ő itt nekünk átadott. So my first question is that living zero waste lifestyle has of course effect on reducing waste in your lifestyle, but what else it gave to you in terms of relationships or anything other than reducing your waste?
Yeah, the living simply, yes, is probably the best advantage of the zero waste lifestyle. It's thanks to living simply that we've discovered a life based on being instead of having, discovered a life based on experiences instead of things. It's allowed us to do things we would have never thought possible. Of course, when you're not wasting your money in things that don't matter, then you can use that money to do things that matter. Activities that reinforce bonds with your family, with your friends. To me, I mean, there is no question that if I wake up every morning with a big smile on my face, it's not because I produce just one jar of trash per year. It's rather because I have discovered the simple life, and that to me is what has brought absolute happiness.
Many people think that living this lifestyle is full of resignations, that you need to give up a lot of things, but do you agree with that, and what else it gave to you?
So yeah, when people ask me what is it that you've had to give up, I always have a smirk on my face because I'm thinking, okay, that person does not know anything about the zero waste lifestyle. They probably think that it's depriving. No, it's the zero waste lifestyle is not depriving. It's actually the complete opposite. It's an alternative lifestyle. It's different, but ultimately you discover a life that is so much better than the one before that you couldn't even go back to the way you used to live before. So zero waste is far from being depriving. What it does is like it's simply, of course, it helps you eliminate trash from your household, but it translates into a simpler life that is so good that it just doesn't make sense to go back or pass by.
In many of your discussions, you mentioned voluntary simplicity and minimalism. Do you think that it can be also a solution, like living this lifestyle and more people starting to live with less? Is it a solution for global problems, for environmental problems, problems of the society, all these climate change issues that we hear now?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard a lot about the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle, but they're used very much out of order, and there is way too much emphasis that's being put on recycling. Very little on reusing, and even less on reducing, and I really think that's where the key is. The less we use, obviously, the less problems we have. And I really think that if we had a whole society based on being instead of having, I think it would solve a lot of problems.
And what do you think, what's the obstacle in making it a huge movement? Like many people says that, okay, it's so good that you start to live with less, but what happens with the economy and with the whole society if everyone decides to buy less? What's your answer for this?
It's funny. Once I gave a talk, I was at a university, and at the end of my talk, and that talk was in Switzerland, and at the end of the talk someone said, but excuse me, I mean, if everyone lived like you, we wouldn't have an economy. And then he went on to say, well, plus we can do zero waste here because we don't have an unpackaged store. And I'm like, okay, what you're saying is very contradictory, because you're telling me that there would not be economic opportunities when you're actually mentioning an economic opportunity in itself. If you don't have an unpackaged store, then start one. And he's like, oh, I don't think anyone would shop at my store. So I asked my audience that person open an unpackaged store? Would you guys shop at it? And of course, everyone raised their hand. So since then, he's actually opened an unpackaged shop. It's people tend to think that we have to keep on going in this consumers. This is the only way we're going to survive. No, we're talking about a different economy, not one that's based on stuff, but one that's based on services. I mean, we as a family, we're not spending our money on stuff, but we're spending it somewhere. We're just spending it on services instead of stuff.
Yeah, so transformation in economy would happen,
exactly.
And that would be the way. And last year,
and for to have a zero waste society, there is a bunch of things that need to come into place, and those, of course, always represent an economic opportunities into themselves. So whether it be unpackaged shops, but also dealing with the return of the containers, so even the food that arrives in the shop is not just sold in a disposable container, but in a reusable one. Even if we had a zero waste flight, in order for all the food to come in reusables, for that to be managed. Of course, there's a lot of things that need to come into place. Even clothing. I think there are a lot of thrift stores out there that are making people cringe at second-hand clothing. Often in thrift stores, it doesn't look pretty, it stinks, and I know some people will not set foot in a thrift store. Now, what needs to happen is to make these things ready, to apply the same marketing rules that are applied to sell new stuff to selling second-hand. And even in the construction, in a home construction world, for example, there is a lot of things that need to come in place. Right now, there is a lot of materials that are being discarded. When you have a remodel, they are being discarded and sent to landfill. Let's grab those materials, let's separate them, and then resell them. And maybe they need some refurbishing and need to be more organized so that it's more appealing to people. But all of that needs to happen. And it's again, that's all part of an economy of services.
Last year, the three topics of the festival, the main topics were money, time, and objects. And this year we are focusing on the topic of digital minimalism. And you, as like an influencer or someone who probably spends much time in online, like writing the blog and giving speeches and answering people on Instagram. I don't know if you answer on them, but no. How can you find the balance, or have you already met problem that people are actually starting to, instead of buying objects, we just put all these things instead of material things in our mind. So we are still consuming a lot of information. We download apps that we never use. So
or even taking a lot of videos, taking a lot of pictures.
A lot of pictures that we never look through. At. How can you find this balance? Have you already started like minimalizing your digital life or the family's digital life?
Yes, definitely, and that's a section in my book where I talk about when you adopt a minimalist lifestyle, it's not just stuff, it's also your digital weight. And if I actually don't allow people to film in my talks, it's because my talk. Sorry, if I don't allow people to film in my talks, it's because my talk is already online. There is no point in having the same talk filmed 1,000 times. I mean, if I let everyone in my talks film, then I would have, I don't know how many talks I've given, but I could represent, hundreds of thousands of the same video online. Now that has a huge weight. When I have one video on my computer, I know how much space it's taking. So I can only imagine how much digital space it would take if hundreds of thousands were taking a video of the same thing. So I am definitely mindful of that. It's up to everyone to do it at their personal level, but in my case, if I go on a vacation, of course I take pictures for the family. I'm the picture taker for the family, but once I get home, my whole family knows I'll need like a couple of days where I just go through the photos and I only keep the ones that we like, the ones that are good, and I keep myself to a very restricted amount. And then, so that means that it's not a forgotten folder where pictures are just sitting there. No, I take care of it. And it's, I think, very important to learn to let go of these things. Same for emails. I gotta say, I'm very efficient with my email. At the end of each day, my inbox is empty. If there is anything in my inbox, it means that it needs an action. Now, there are some things, of course, that I archive. If it's like a contract or something like an agreement that I have with someone for a talk, of course, I archive that. But all the emails, that come through that don't need to be archived, I delete them. I don't subscribe to any newsletter. I don't subscribe to any blog or anything like that because I don't want that weight. And when I sit in front of my computer, I don't want to be sitting there for hours going through junk mail. I really, to me, junk mail that is physical or junk mail digital, it's the same. I don't want it.
So tackle it on the spot. Same waste, and you're trying to also reduce that in your life.
Yeah, when you live simply, you have to, because that's the more time you have not dealing with that. That's time that you can do something else that matters. Volunteering, spending with your kids, cooking a delicious, nutritious meal instead of going to the store to buy something on the go because you spend most of your day dealing with junk mail and stuff that didn't matter. It's all a question of being more efficient in a way. I think that's probably the best advantage of this lifestyle is really having a life that is really conscious in every aspect and being very efficient with your time so it's well spent. Life is short. Let's make the best of it. Let's not waste it on things that don't matter.
Yeah, scrolling on our phone and,
exactly.
and reading newsletters. And just the last question. We are organizing this festival with the aim of gathering the people who already started to live this life or they want to start to live it and receive some inspiration. Would you suggest people, or what would be your message to the people who just starting this lifestyle and maybe afraid to come to such festival or gather with people? What would be the benefit of meeting the people that are actually starting to live this lifestyle?
The great thing about going to a festival is that it brings the community together and people make they network and they maybe make friendships. I've actually had some people meet at my talks and then get married. So you never know what's going to happen. If you're single, definitely go. Because also then you'll be able to meet like-minded people, and that to me is what gives a lot of momentum. It's one of the reasons I also don't like to give talks via the computer, because if I do that, then people sit at their computer and they can't see that there is a whole community around them that exists. When you have something in person like what you're doing, it's great. It really brings everyone together and it gives it a lot of energy, and people then feel encouraged and motivated to do it. So for the people that are afraid of it, I would say don't worry. It's probably the complete opposite of what you think it is, and just open your mind to it. All you have to lose is in the end you're going to discover a better life. So what do you have to lose? Nothing. You only have good things to gain from it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for doing it, organizing.